Why did I drink so much of it? Oh, it just looks like a normal sugar, guys. Like, it should just taste good. Look at all those OHs. Why does it have to taste so bad? Welcome back, I'm That Chemist, and today we're going to be deciding which sugar tastes the best. Today I'm joined by my assistant Teresa, my lovely wife. Normally when we think about sugar, you probably only think of something like sucrose or glucose, maybe fructose, if you're thinking of something like high fructose corn syrup. There's a couple different receptors that sweet molecules can interact with, and they can bind with up to 8 sites. In this video, we'll be tasting 10 different sugars, and we're going to be deciding which ones taste the best and which ones taste the worst. Now, I really want to highlight, first of all, that I obtained all of these sugars from reputable sources, and all of them are food grade. We're not tasting any weird random sugars that you might not want to eat. We're just tasting things that you might normally encounter in food or pharmaceuticals, or alternatively, someone might be taking them as a supplement. In addition to the 10 sugars that we're going to be talking about today, there are other sugars that are edible. I just wasn't able to find vendors for them. Some possible sugars are shown here. You might be able to find some yourself if you're interested in seeing what they taste like. If you taste any of those other sugars, you're welcome to leave a comment down below. So when we're judging these sugars, we're going to be doing 2 different things. In the amino acid tier list, we ended up rating the amino acids based on how they taste on their own, as well as on a McDonald's French fry. If you haven't seen that video yet, I'd encourage you to go check it out after this video. This time we're going to be tasting the sugars on their own, and we're also going to be tasting them in what I like to call citric acid-ade. Now you might be thinking to yourself, what the heck is citric acid-ade? Well, we were going to do lemonade, but because lemons tend to vary a bit in their composition, and your lemons might taste different than my lemons, what we decided to do was make a citric acid solution that wasn't too sour, but it was sour enough that it would be enjoyable with some sugar. So citric acid is a really common acid. It's found in various different fruits, such as citrus fruits, hence the name citric acid. This way we're going to have an unbiased way to decide what would make a sour sweet beverage taste better and worse. So I think you could take this as a starting point and then make this into a potential recipe that would be really good. If you end up making your own recipes based on this, I'd love to hear how they turn out. So there's a couple different things we're going to be deciding about the sugars, and the main one is, does it taste good? Is this a sugar that you would want to eat? Does it have an aftertaste? Does it have any weird off notes? Does the sugar dissolve properly? Is it actually sweet? Just because it's a sugar, maybe it's not that sweet. There could be differences in the sugar in terms of having a glycemic index. It could raise your blood glucose levels. We're going to talk about that a little bit later on. And it's important to think about whether or not these sugars are safe to consume in large amounts. So these are all food grade sugars. They're safe to consume, but that doesn't mean you should go and eat like a kilogram of some random sugar that your body might not be used to eating. Additionally, if you have an intolerance to one or more of these sugars, you might get the runs or other gastric distress if you consume large amounts of them. Some people are sensitive to certain sugars. My wife is lactose intolerant. That means that she probably shouldn't eat a lot of lactose. But guess what, everyone? She's doing it today. She's trying lactose, and it's just for you, YouTube. So make sure you watch to the end to thank Teresa for suffering. Sometimes when we talk about sugar, we're actually talking about sucrose. And if I say sugar, I'm talking about one of the many different sugars. Let's get started. So the first sugar for today is sucrose. So ahead of time, I got some citric acid, I dissolved it in water, and this is to a known concentration. For each glass here, what we're going to do is we're going to pour the sugar into the glass. We have these little plastic fancy glasses here, and we're going to add 25 milliliters of the citric acid solution. If you're wondering about how much of each sugar we've added, I'll include all of that in the description. I had to weigh out different amounts of sugars based on the relative sweetness. Some of these had an established relative sweetness range, and this can also be concentration dependent, so it's going to vary a little bit. So I've weighed out the appropriate amount of each sugar ahead of time. Teresa's going to be adding that whole thing to a glass, and then she's going to be adding 25 milliliters with this beaker here. All of these beakers have never been used for any toxic chemicals before. In fact, I've actually never used either of these beakers till right now, so they're absolutely safe for us to drink out of. And there's no significant risks with what we're doing. This is extremely safe, and so if you're concerned that this might not be safe, it's absolutely safe, so you can throw those worries aside. Now that being said, as I said earlier, you shouldn't go and eat a kilogram of a random sugar, you nugget. And if you do, that's on you. Sucrose, also known as table sugar, is a disaccharide, and there's actually 2 different sugar pieces to sucrose. We have both glucose and fructose, and this is bound through a glycosidic linkage. Now, that glycosidic linkage is somewhat unstable, but compared to your typical acetal or ketal that you encounter in organic chemistry, it's quite a bit more stable. So if you prepare solutions of sucrose, they can last for a really long time, unless they're under harsh acidic conditions or under enzymatic conditions where certain enzymes are able to cleave that bond. Sucrose is typically extracted from sugar beets or sugar cane, and sucrose is of concern for tooth decay because certain bacteria such as Streptococcus mutans is able to convert that sucrose into a gluey polymer that ends up giving you a feeling of plaque on your teeth. Sucrose has a glycemic index of 65, and we'll talk about what a glycemic index is in a minute here. You want to get us a paper towel? As we spill here, we're going to be wiping up any of the mess we make. I also want to say, YouTube, I spent a few $100s for sugars on this tier list, so I hope you enjoy it. So while Teresa stirs that, why don't we talk about the taste of sucrose on its own. Sucrose, it's just your typical table sugar. Teresa and I are both going to give it a taste. So this is the spoon. You can see the spoon here. I'll add in a bit of the sugar.
They're all going down into like a hole.
That's fine. We can mix it after. And if you can't see here. And so this is sucrose. Tastes like sugar because it is sugar. Here's some sucrose for Miss Teresa. So sugar, it's classic. It's good. Sugar's an enjoyable taste. I'd say sugar on its own in the powder form, it's got to be like a B or an A tier. It's pretty good. What do you think?
I think sucrose is like a B tier.
Yeah, it's pretty good, but we'll see if any of the other sugars taste any better. We'll set our sucrose aside here. And how's our sucrose acid-ade coming along?
I think it's all dissolved.
Would you like to give it the first taste? What do you think?
I'll still say it's a B tier.
Yeah, I'd say it's either a C or like a low B. I think it's pretty good tasting, but...
Tastes like lemonade.
It tastes kind of like lemonade. I'd say it tastes like lemonade. It's missing a lot of the good flavors of lemonade, but it's got the sour tang to it. It's not like unpleasantly acidic like when you burp and there's some hydrochloric acid, but it still tastes decent. It's not an unwelcome taste. It's pleasant. I'm going to say it's probably like a B tier because I think we could definitely get worse potentially with some of these. Just finish it off. It's like barely any there. Okay. We have a garbage under the table. We're not just chucking them onto the ground. We're not absolute menaces. So let's just briefly talk about glycemic index. So what happens when you eat food is your body will try and break it down into molecules that it can use to sustain your body. The most important molecule from eating in the context of this video is glucose. And when you eat certain foods, your body can break it down and convert it into glucose. And what that will do is it'll raise your blood glucose. So your body's going to be shuttling glucose around your body. Your body's going to use that glucose as its main source of energy. So you can have a glycemic index generally in the range of 0 to 100. Some of the pure sugars here will have a glycemic index above 100, and that's just relative to glucose, which is arbitrarily set to 100. The next sugar we have is lactose. Lactose is another disaccharide, and similar to sucrose, we have a glucose molecule, but in the case of lactose, we actually have a galactose and a glucose monosaccharide as a part of the disaccharide. When someone is lactose intolerant, it means that their body doesn't express the lactase enzyme. So when you're a baby, when you're a mammal and you're a baby, so when a baby mammal, so a baby mammal needs to be able to digest lactose from its mother's milk. So it has this enzyme called lactase, which makes it able to do that, and it breaks the lactose down into glucose and galactose. When you get older, your body tends to make less of the lactase enzyme. Now, there's certain groups of peoples, certain ethnicities, which historically have consumed dairy products far into adulthood, and those populations tend to still have some of the lactase enzyme as adults. Although certain populations which consume less dairy tend to lose the lactase gene as they enter adulthood. One of the things that might happen if you're lactose intolerant, you can go to the supermarket, you can get lactose-free milk, and what they do is they add a lactase enzyme to the milk. Now, lactose is actually significantly less sweet tasting than sucrose. Although once it's been converted by lactase into glucose and galactose, both glucose and galactose are significantly sweeter. So the resulting lactose-free milk is often quite a bit sweeter than your typical milk might taste. Have you experienced this, Teresa?
Yeah, I have lactose milk right now.
And we generally only buy that one because we don't drink that much milk, so I end up suffering through the overly sweet milk.
It tastes good.
It does taste good. Lactose has a glycemic index of 46, so it doesn't release as much blood glucose as glucose would. The other thing I want to mention here is that lactose intolerance happens because you lack that enzyme. However, there's bacteria in your body that don't lack the ability to break down lactose. So those bacteria will end up breaking down the lactose in your gut, producing all sorts of gases, which leads to flatulence, potentially diarrhea, and other undesirable symptoms.
Stinky.
So why don't we try out some lactose? Lactose has drastically lower solubility in water than sucrose does. So we'll see how this is.
I'm the first one to taste.
Yeah, why don't we give it to Teresa first? It's like pasty. It tastes almost like nothing. It's kind of like paper.
It's tasteless.
It just like sucks all the water out of your mouth. Is it sweet? It's not really sweet. Like, it's maybe like 0.5 out of 10 sweet. What do you think?
I'll say it's less than 0.5.
Less than 0.5.
0.0.
0.00. Yeah, not very sweet. You could put this in food, and I don't think anybody would notice that there was lactose in there. So, not pleasant. I can still feel my lips sticking together from this, so I'm not a fan of lactose. So, we probably should have done this before, but why don't we pour some of our citric acid solution here? Give it a good mix. This looks kind of like sand or glue, and it's not dissolving too great. This would be a great time to shout out LW Measurements. LW Measurements sent me a scale to use in my science videos, and here's a time lapse of me weighing out the chemicals for this video. All of these chemicals are food grade. One interesting feature of these scales is that it possesses a draft shield. The draft shield is made of glass instead of plastic, as that prevents static buildup. That means that the static isn't going to affect the scale, and that could be a concern when you're weighing stuff out. If you're a science YouTuber and you're based in the US or Canada, you can contact LW Measurements, and they might be willing to send you a scale if you include it in a few of your videos. I'd like to thank LW Measurements for their support of this channel. They did not sponsor this video, although they did contribute the scale that was used to make this video. I didn't have a scale before they sent it to me, and I'm very grateful that they were able to send it to me. Thank you. Okay, so here you can see we got like a milky white solution.
They're all on the ground, on the bottom.
Some of it is, yeah. So I think we're just going to have to suck it all up as it goes. It's like the worst vitamin ever. Take a good strong sip. We have to finish it, Teresa. We have to finish it. We're finishing it for YouTube. Teresa, this is your moment. This is your moment, Teresa. Teresa hasn't finished her drink yet.
You drink some.
It's not good. It's not as bad as cysteine, but it's pretty bad. Yeah, this is not great. You can see how much of the lactose is left there. It just kind of all... Oop! That's gonna be in the video. Ay, 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 ay. Well, Teresa's here for a second reason. It's to laugh and make even more of a mess. Would you like to grab us another tissue?
That was you that made the mess.
This is good, actually. It's good. Content, baby! There goes our brand new table. Okay, there's going to be a mess there. I'm sorry about that, folks. I guess we didn't really do the lactose due diligence when we were tasting the powder. We both gave it a sweetness rating out of 10 of very, very low. I would say 0.5. Teresa would say 0.00 or 0.0. So I think lactose on its own can probably go into E tier maybe F tier because it's not sweet. It's not sweet. It can't be given higher than F if it doesn't taste sweet. So it's going to go right into F tier. Now in Citric Acid-ade, it was also terrible. It was slightly sweeter than it was on its own, but it was pretty bad. What would you give that?
F.
Yeah, I think it's probably F tier. It's not as bad as cysteine was in the amino acid video, but it's pretty bad. I can still feel my mouth sticking together. And I need to rinse out. Let's put this into the garbage. Next, we have the disaccharide maltose. Maltose is a sugar that's a significant component of malt. And you might be wondering, what is a malt? You might know what a malt is. If you know what a malt is, hey, you're smart. Okay, so maltose is a component of malt. And you might be wondering what a malt is. And so a malt is a germinated cereal grain, which has been dried to halt the germination process. And so malt extract is used in all sorts of food. It's a key ingredient in beer, whiskey, and it flavors some other alcoholic beverages, as well as some non-alcoholic beverages. We actually possess 4 different enzymes as humans to break maltose down, and it's extremely rare for someone to have maltose intolerance. Maltose is less sweet than sucrose, and it has a relative sweetness of about 0.3 to 0.6, although it has a glycemic index slightly higher than glucose of 105. It was actually a real challenge for me to find pure maltose because almost everybody sells malt sugar, but hey, I found it, and it was just for you, YouTube. If you want to support the channel, you can support the channel with a channel membership, or alternatively, you could become a supporter on Patreon. I release a unique video every month for patrons on Patreon, and sometimes they get to see sneak peeks of upcoming projects, and they get to be in the loop for things that you might not see on the Discord and you might not see in YouTube community posts. I'd like to thank all of my patrons for supporting my channel. So why don't we test out some maltose? It should mostly dissolve, but it might not entirely dissolve. So here we have maltose. Got a little bit of static electricity going on here.
Also, this one you take first before you.
It's not as good as sucrose. It's got like a bit of a cardboard taste to it. I'm gonna give myself a little bit more. It's not terrible.
Yeah, it tastes like cardboard.
It doesn't quite taste as bad as cardboard. Like I think saying it
Tastes like paper.
It tastes kind of like paper, but not in a bad way, in like a neutral way. I'd say as a sugar, it's probably like a D tier, maybe a low C tier, but it's not the most offensive thing ever. It's definitely not as bad as lactose. Okay, so here we have our maltose citric acid-ade.
It's yellow.
It's a little bit yellow. I swear, guys, this is just maltose. We didn't put anything else in there. We're not drinking anything.
Pee.
We're not drinking anything yellow on this channel. This is not a Nile Red video. I love you, Nigel. It's like paper lemonade. What do you think?
Paper lemonade.
Paper lemonade. It's not a great taste. It's got some papery notes. Yeah, kind of like cardboardy. It's still sweet, but it's not as sweet as the sucrose. It's definitely better than the lactose. Like, I'd say that's probably like C tier as a citric acid-ade. What do you think?
Say a D. At
D
first,
tier?
when you taste it, it tastes like. I'll say it kind of tastes like tape.
Like a tape?
You know, it tastes like tape.
Which kind of tape? Like masking tape or?
Like those clear tapes. that
It
you
tastes
taste.
like the smell of tape, I guess.
That's just me.
I'm not a fan of like how yellow this looks. I don't know if you can see it here.
We taste pee.
Just like hold it up here. You can see it's pretty yellow. Have a glass sip. I think it progressively got better. It tastes a little bit more like icing sugar on the second sip.
Still tastes like tape to me.
It tastes better. I think now that most of it's dissolved, it tastes significantly better. I would say it's like a C tier.
Say D.
D tier? D tier. Palate cleanse with our boy Grimace here. Grimace really hits the spot, doesn't he? Do you like IRL tier lists? Were you wondering if I was talking to you this whole time? Yes, you. Yes, you. Are you subscribed to the channel? Did you know that over 50% of the people who watch this channel aren't subscribed? if you want to see more science videos like this one, you might not think that this is a science video, but I swear it's absolutely a science video. If you want to see more science videos like this one, you got to subscribe. I'm not going to tell you to click that bell. You don't need random notifications in the middle of the day. But if you want to click that bell, go ahead.
Go clicky, clicky. Don't do that.
So the next sugar we have is Trehalose. Trehalose is another disaccharide, and it's the last disaccharide we're going to be tasting in this video. Trehalose is also known as Micose or Trehalose, and it's another dimer of glucose. I didn't mention this for Maltose, but Maltose is a dimer of glucose, and so is Trehalose. They just connect through different points. You can see this is what Maltose looks like, and this is what Trehalose looks like. Relatively similar, but a little bit different. So Trehalose is another common one that our bodies are able to break down. Certain bacteria, fungi, plants, and invertebrates synthesize it as a source of energy so that later on they're able to have that energy available. And one of the cool things about Trehalose is it's actually able to help organisms survive cold temperatures by staying liquid for longer. Omnivores and herbivores possess this enzyme called trehalase, which helps break it down into glucose, and it has a relative sweetness of 0.15 to 0.45. So it's nowhere near as sweet as sucrose. Because it helps prevent stuff from freezing, oftentimes you'll see it in some consumer foods, such as ice cream or other things that need to be kept cold. There's a rare mutation where people can actually be trehalose intolerant, and this is something that occurs amongst the Greenlandic Inuit. Fun fact, there was a procedure developed in 2017 where sperm was able to be stored at room temperature using trehalose.
Ooh.
So that's interesting. I swear, guys, we're not testing that on this channel. Don't even think about it. Even if you subscribe on Patreon, that won't happen. But maybe it will. Better become a supporter and find out.
Oh.
Trehalose has a glycemic index which is not as well established. It's somewhere between 38 and 70 approximately. But I couldn't find a definitive source that said specifically what it is. Maybe it depends on the population. So why don't we give Trehalose a taste? I thought I liked it, now I'm not sure. It's sweet, but it's fairly neutral. It doesn't have much taste to it. It's like, it's not terrible. It doesn't have a papery taste. It's kind of hard to describe what the taste is.
I can't taste after the taste that we just had before.
So it's sweet, but it's delayed. It takes a while to taste the sweet taste, but it is there. I'll give you like a better taste of it. I think it's definitely less sweet than the Maltose, but it's not terrible. It just takes a little while to start tasting sweet. So it's like a delayed onset sweetness. Doesn't have any papery taste.
It tastes like taro.
Taro is a root vegetable, kind of like potato. Taro is quite commonly used in Asian cuisine, and I love taro.
It tastes like taro to me.
To me, it's hard to put my finger on it, but maybe Teresa's right. So let's taste our Trehalose Citric Acid-ade. There's barely any sweetness to it. Just kind of tastes like the citric acid on its own.
Yeah, it tastes like lemonade. Can't taste anything.
It doesn't even taste like lemonade. It just tastes like a lemon. Tastes just sour. It's not good. It's not bad either. We still have to be rating on sweetness. So I'd say the sugar on its own, as a powder, I'd probably say it's like E tier. It just doesn't taste very good. What do you think about the sugar on its own?
I'll say D.
D for the sugar. What about the citric acid-ade?
It's tasteless. So...
I guess that means E tier.
yeah.
Yeah, I think we're going to have to put it into E tier.
It's tasteless. 8 grams.
I know, right? So Teresa was remarking that for the sucrose, we only used 3 grams of sucrose, and the sucrose containing citric acid-ade was significantly sweeter than any of the other ones we've tasted so far. And that's surprising because for the Trehalose, for instance, we just added 6.6 grams. So there's almost twice as much mass-wise, and it tasted like almost nothing, which is kind of surprising. Okay, next, we have glucose. Glucose is the most important sugar. It's also known as dextrose, sometimes referred to as corn sugar. and it's the most abundant monosaccharide in nature. Glucose is converted into polysaccharides of all sorts, such as glycogen, such as cellulose, and it's made by most plants and algae during photosynthesis. Glucose is the most abundant carbohydrate in the world, and it's important in metabolism, as it's the main source of energy that every cell in your body can use. Glucose circulates in the blood in animals, and glucose levels in blood are referred to as blood sugar. Glucose was first isolated from raisins in 1747 by the German chemist Andreas Marggraf. Glucose has a glycemic index of 100 because that's what the whole glycemic index is relative to. Insulin. So glucose is involved with insulin. Insulin is a hormone made by the pancreas that helps glucose get into your muscles, into fat, and into your liver, where it's used as energy. As I've previously discussed on the channel, the mitochondria is like the US stock exchange of the cell, and ATP is the American dollar. Therefore, glucose is like a bond that can be exchanged for ATP when it's needed. Now, if you're a younger viewer and you don't know what a bond is, glucose is like an NFT, with the main difference being that glucose is actually worth something, and when you want to get your value for your glucose, your cells can just convert it right into ATP. Now, whether or not the same can be said for NFTs, I'll leave that up to you. So the way it works is your cells will receive that glucose, and your cells need energy to do what cells do best. Your cells have to stay alive. And so that glucose is converted into energy so that ATP can be used to turn over enzymes for all sorts of different processes. There are other intermediates that are high energy that are involved in several different biological processes. ATP is just the main one that we talk about. Why don't we give glucose a taste? This one should taste pretty good because it's glucose and it's the main sugar that your body needs. So I would expect that our body's wired to say, hey, glucose tastes good. Eat it. That is awesome.
Is it sweet?
Yeah, it's great. I love glucose. A or S. I'd say it's like, I want to eat the rest of this.
That was too much.
Wow, it tastes great. You know, kids, they say sugar's addictive, and they're right.
Yeah, eat them all.
It's great. So I think glucose on its own is like an A or an S. It's pretty good. I'd say it's pretty good. I'd say
it's an A for now.
Yeah, we'll say it's A because maybe it could be better with a bit of flavor, but it's pretty good.
You almost knocked that thing over.
So is our glucose citric acid-ade ready?
There, drink your sugar water.
It's a bit dilute. I think it could probably be stronger.
There's nothing in it.
I drank the rest of it. So the problem is, I think we just tasted pure glucose and then immediately went to have a sip of the glucose water, and it's just significantly less sweet. So I don't think it tasted that strong. So I'm going to give glucose the benefit of the doubt. I'm going to assume glucose acetate on its own's probably like a B tier. I just had my taste buds spoiled by how strong the pure glucose was. Pure glucose, definitely can recommend 100%. What do you think you would rate the citric acid lemonade, Teresa?
I'll say it's like a B.
In terms of the taste of the glucose, like the sweetness came on fast. It was really pleasant. There isn't too much nuance to say about the taste other than it dissolved really quickly and my mouth was just saying, yes, more please. No weird subtle notes, just all good. No complaints at all. If I was given a plate of glucose and I don't know what I'm saying here.
We're on sugar high.
I'm high on glucose. I'm so high
on
right
all
now.
these sugars.
Okay, we need a bit of a break here so that we can start tasting sweet again because my tongue is still saturated in sweet tasting molecules.
Every sugar.
Do you think you could refill Grimace for me? You know, I don't want Teresa to hear what I have to say, guys, but she is definitely the sweetest thing in this room.
What did you say about me?
I didn't say anything, right? Comment down below saying how little I just said.
I think he said something.
Okay, guys, we're halfway done. We're gonna still get through the rest of these sugars, and we're gonna get there. We're gonna do it. We're not quitters. Are you a quitter? You're not a quitter. You're gonna finish this video. You're not allowed to leave this table till you finish your vegetables. What vegetables? Where are the vegetables?
We're eating sugar.
Okay. Oh yeah, before we just take it and start eating it. Yeah, the thing is, like, I'm feeling my blood sugar drop and be like, blah.
For taking too much sugar?
Yeah, it's like up and crash.
I'm pretty sure we are going to crash.
Yeah. So next, we have Mannose. Mannose? No, Mannose. Mannose. Mannose is important in human metabolism. Mannose is an interesting monosaccharide. So I didn't mention this in the last one, but glucose is a monosaccharide. Monosaccharides can take different forms. They could be in their open form, but most of the time they try and form these cyclic systems. When they're a 6-membered ring, they're known as a pyranose. And when they're a 5-membered ring, they're known as a furanose. So glucose tends to form the pyranose as the preferred form, although the equilibrium can sometimes form a little bit of the furanose. So it's possible that the sugar in its crystalline form might taste a little bit different than when it's in solution, because once it's dissolved, it can exchange and convert between the different forms. So mannose is important in human metabolism. It's used in the glycosylation of certain proteins. Mannose is used as a dietary supplement to prevent urinary tract infections, although there's a bit of a dispute in terms of how effective it is. The sweetness of mannose wasn't clearly stated in the literature, so I just had to kind of make an estimate for this video. I couldn't find a glycemic index for mannose in the literature, but sources suggested that it's lower than sucrose. So why don't we give mannose a taste?
Tasting my nose?
Please do not taste your nose. Got a decent chunk there. Decent chunky boy.
My turn.
I was really on board. And I'm not on board anymore. It went from like B tier to like F tier.
Oh, okay.
It was good initially. It was really good initially. But
why is it so much?
It's fine. It's not that strong. It's less sweet than sugar. We just told the viewers, Teresa. Teresa, do it for the video. It's very bitter, but it's great to start. Teresa hasn't realized yet. But it gets significantly more bitter. My guess is that the crystalline form of this tastes quite good, but then as it converts to one of the other forms as less desirable, it tastes extremely yuck. Like, my mouth is like, what the heck? What are you doing? Not good. I would not recommend Mannose. I'd say on its own, it's like, it's pretty bad. It's like bitter and yucky. It had a sweet taste that came and went. I thought it had some interesting flavor, and then it just like nosedived, and it's like really bitter and yucky. I can't even really describe it. It's kind of like, it's what I imagine wet newspaper tastes like, with the ink included. It's not a good taste. It's very bitter. What do you have to say about it?
Have you tasted a wet newspaper before?
What would you rate that? I'd say F tier. Mannose is F tier.
Sure. Say F2.
Okay, let's try our Mannose-ade. I'm going to need some Mannose-ade after this is done. It's just so bitter. It's not a good taste. Why did I drink so much of it? Oh, it just looks like a normal sugar, guys. Like, it should just taste good. Look at all those OHs. Why does it have to taste so bad? You have to finish it. I drank so much.
You're about to spill.
Oop. Ugh. Yuck. What would you rate the Mannose with the citric acid?
I'll say E.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. I think it actually tastes worse than the Lactose did, but the Lactose also had a really unwelcome texture where the Mannose didn't. So the texture of the Mannose is fine. It dissolved decent, no issues with the dissolving, but it just tastes so bitter. I don't know why it tastes so bitter, but it's not good. Don't eat Mannose.
Tastes like orange.
It's just so bitter, like it's not going away. It's a yucky, yuck one. Yuck. Okay, 4 sugars left. Here we go. It's hard to be enthusiastic after I've filled my mouth with some dirty, filthy Mannose.
Mannose.
I think I know why they called it Mannose, because
Mannose?
maybe that's what a man's nose tastes like. Would you like to find out?
Ew, okay, no, gross.
Next we have fructose. Fructose is the first one that we've talked about here that has a ketone instead of an aldehyde. Fructose tends to form the furanose rather than the pyranose form that glucose or the other ones formed. Fructose is known as fruit sugar as it's found in many different fruits. Now, when you eat fructose, it can only be converted into glucose by your liver. The fructose has to be absorbed by your gut, then your liver can convert it into glucose. Fructose is significantly sweeter than sucrose, ranging from 1.2 to 1.8 times the relative sweetness that sucrose has. Fructose is a little bit controversial. There's some strong correlations between fructose consumption and obesity.
Ooh.
And in general, you want to minimize the amount of free sugars that you add to your diet. Fructose only has a glycemic index of 25, so it doesn't raise your blood sugar anywhere near as much as glucose does. Why don't we give fructose a taste? It's sweet. The sweetness comes and it goes really quickly. There's not much flavor to it. It's good, but it goes away and it leaves you wanting more. It's not bad. It's not bad. I'd say it's probably like B tier. What do you think?
I say B or C.
B or C? Definitely need a water break here so we don't ruin our taste buds.
Mine's already ruined.
Why don't we give Fructose Acid-ade a taste? It's good. Could be a little bit sweeter, but it's still pretty sweet. The acidic taste of the citric acid is somewhat diminished compared to the other ones. I think it tastes significantly less sour than the other ones did, and we know that because this is a standard solution, it should be as sour for each taste test. So it seems like the fructose had a little bit of an impact. Maybe it masks some of the sour taste. I'd say it's fairly neutral. I'd say it's probably like a C tier.
Yeah. C. Oh, that's a backward C. C. You can see
Yeah,
it, right?
yeah.
It's a C, right? Eh? Good.
It's a C. Just like your grades. Okay, next one. Psicose or Psicose. Is it Psicose or Psicose? Well, it's also allulose. Allulose? No, allulose. Could it be allulose?
Psychos.
Heck if I knows. So allulose or Psicose is a sugar that's added for industrially manufactured foods as a low-calorie sweetener.
Do you see the chunks?
There's some big chunks in the allulose. Allulose has a relative sweetness of 0.7 relative to sucrose, and as of 2018, most of the commercially available allulose was produced from corn, although it can also be produced from beet sugar. It has a glycemic index of 0, meaning that it doesn't affect your blood sugar levels or your insulin levels at all.
Did you say beet sugar or B?
Beet. Like
Oh.
sugar beet. Beet sugar.
Okay.
I'm gonna beat you, sugar. Why don't we give allulose a taste? It's not bad.
Sweet.
Yep. It's pretty sweet. It's neutral. It's not as sweet as fructose. It's got a slight weird taste, but it's not like terrible. Like I'd eat more of that. It's not bad. You want more?
No.
It's got a very slight bitterness, but not like enough to really make you concerned. I'd say it's like a C tier. It's got like some slight interesting flavor to it. It's hard to put my finger on it. It's got some other very slight sweet flavor to it. Not a sweet taste, but some sort of flavor. I'd say it's probably like a C tier though.
Say a low C and high D.
Okay. Why don't we give our allulose citric acid-ade a go?
Drink sugar.
It's not bad. It's pretty good actually. I think with the citric acid, this is One of my favorite ones so far. It's not overwhelmingly sweet, but it's good. I'd say that's like a B tier. I'm feeling like an afterglow from it. Ah, that's not bad. I'd say Allulose is probably like a B tier. What do you think?
Yeah, like a B and A.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I don't think I'd go as far as A, but I think it's at least a solid B tier. Cheers to Grimace. You gonna cheers me with Grimace's butt? Grimace approves.
What?
Next, we have Xylose. Xylose is also known as wood sugar, as it was a sugar first isolated from wood. Xylose is the monomer or the main component of the hemicellulose xylan. Xylan is found in plants, in the secondary cell wall of dicots, and all cell walls of grasses, so it's extremely common throughout the plant kingdom. Xylose is metabolized by humans, although a lot of it is excreted through the kidneys. The only way we can obtain xylose is from our diet, and it only contains 2.4 calories per gram relative to the 4 calories per gram that you would get from glucose or sucrose. It also has a glycemic index lower than sucrose, although I couldn't find an exact number. Why don't we give Xylose a taste? We're definitely eating it. If you think we would cheat for the test, we would absolutely not do that. And I'll include all of the footage from me weighing this out on the second channel. I'll put something on in the background. Maybe it'll just be music, but I'll put the video of me weighing everything out on the second channel in case you really need proof. So in fact, yes, we have weighed some of the Xylose out. It's not bad. Doesn't have much taste to it. Sweet. It does taste sweet. It's kind of like icing sugar. It has like a very, very slight bitter, like not significantly bitter, but it's not bad. I'd say it's like B tier. It's like, it tastes like wish.com sucrose. So I'd say it's probably like a C tier, but it's not terrible. Why don't we give our Xylose citric acid-ade a go? Decent. It's got a bit of a cooling, refreshing taste to it. It doesn't taste very sour. It's good. I like that. I'd say that's probably like an A tier.
Have you ranked any sugar S tier?
No, we haven't ranked a single one S tier so far. I think it would be pretty challenging to put this into S tier. Do you think this belongs in S tier?
No.
I don't think it belongs in S tier either. It's got to be like an A tier, otherwise like a pretty high B tier. Why don't we put it into A tier? Last but not least, maybe it is least, who knows, is Ribose. Ribose is a simple sugar. Ribose is part of RNA, ribonucleic acid. It's part of RNA molecules such as adenosine, cytidine, guanosine, and uridine. These are all derivatives of ribose. Ribose is so interesting that it's even a component of ATP, which is like the American dollar of the cell. I'm going to keep saying it. It's got a couple potential medical uses for conditions such as congestive heart failure, as well as for chronic fatigue syndrome. I'm starting to feel a bit fatigued myself after tasting all these sugars.
We're going to crash.
We're going to have the worst sugar crash after this. In healthy subjects, there was a release of insulin resulting in a reduction in blood sugar by people who had consumed ribose. So, according to research, ribose apparently lowers blood sugar, which I thought was a little bit interesting. So why don't we give ribose a taste? I would have also got deoxyribose for like DNA, but I couldn't find any food grade deoxyribose to taste. Here's our ribose. The container that the ribose came in had a very strong smell. It's not a smell that I was a fan of.
I can't smell it.
There you go. You can eat it.
What's that taste?
It's bitter, but it's like, it's got a, it's like, you know the sound of a slide whistle? Like,
It tastes like medicine.
it tastes like medicine, not in a good way.
Like those little crushed medicines.
It tastes like I'm eating a Fred Flintstone's vitamin and I just tasted it right by the feet.
Ew.
I feel like I tasted Fred Flintstone's vitamin feet. It's not good. It's probably like an E tier. It's not good. It's got a nasty aftertaste. Yeah, it's not great. It's not good. Why don't we give, what do you think? I think it's probably like an E tier.
I'll say F.
F tier? I think she's forgot how bad lactose was. Would you like to try some more lactose?
I didn't say lactose, that's F.
It's also F, but what do you think's worse? Do you think this one was worse or the lactose was worse?
Both of them are worse.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. It's still a little bit bitter. Not a great taste. It's hard to describe, but it's got like an interesting taste, but it's mostly a bad interesting.
I don't know.
Okay, we're about to run out, so quickly, why don't we finish this? Take a sip, take a sip. Our camera is about to fill up. That is like the sourest, grossest thing ever. That is F tier. Absolute F tier. So hopefully you've enjoyed this tier list, seeing us suffer. If you have any ideas for future videos you'd like to see on the channel, make sure you leave them down in the comments. Please subscribe if you'd like to see more videos like this. Do you have any final remarks you'd like to say?
Thank you for coming to this my TED Talk.
Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Have a great day.
So gross.
Shout out to Teresa for coming and helping out on the video. If you'd like to see Teresa in more videos, make sure you comment down below. Thanks for watching, and I hope you have a great day. Do you have anything you'd like to say to the viewers of the channel?
Thank you for coming on to this channel and me trying on different sugars. I'm gonna get sugar, such a sugar. What was I gonna call it?
I'm definitely ending the video with that clip.